Part 70. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 715. Lu Chang'an opened the door, and it seemed that the scene he came back to watch earlier was replaying. Shang Guandandan was still holding the thermos bottle and staring at the TV with squinted eyes. His eyes slowly turned sideways and fell on Lu Chang'an. Zhou Dongdong, he got out from under the electric heating table. We're starting to cook upstairs. We'll eat soon. I'm a little hungry. I've only been eating Jinling and Huayang cuisine for 2 days, and I miss Zhou Shuling's strong taste. Brother Chang'an, those guests who don't like me upstairs are gone. Zhou Dongdong was also a little hungry, and rubbed his belly and rubbed his stomach next to Lu Chang'an. Let's go. Lu Chang'an nodded. They don't seem to like me either. After saying that, Lu Chang'an glanced at Shang Guandandan and winked. Then they definitely don't like me either. Shang Guandandan snorted lightly. If he knew the age of the Jade Seal, he would kill them. In fact, Shang Guandandan could let her little coffin suck them to death, but after all, she was a Empress Dowager who exuded kindness, uprightness, and elegance. She could not behave like the Emperor in front of her, who appeared to be quiet, elegant, and easygoing, but was actually cruel with a disregard for human life. Why don't they like any of them? Zhou Dongdong's eyes widened a little. He clenched his hands into small fists and put them at his side, jumping up and down, and asked doubtfully. I don't know, but you see, they don't like me, Dandan, and Dongdong. So do you think there is something wrong with us that makes them dislike us, or do they have something wrong with themselves? Lu Chang'an asked casually. Road. They have a problem, Zhou Dongdong said loudly, jumping up and running in the living room. Lu Chang'an nodded. It's a pity that Zhou Shuling didn't see the scene, otherwise she would have looked at him with admiration, showing I am really a stupid mother, but he is so good at educating children. Expression and eyes. It is Lu Chang'an's little hobby to make Zhou Shuling realize that she is a stupid mother, just like Lu Chang'an likes to make Zhou Dongdong shine with his stupidity. Brother Chang'an, during the final exam, I couldn't do many of the questions. Is there something wrong with the questions? Zhou Dongdong stopped jumping up and down and looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. No, this is something else. It's a matter of you being stupid. I am witty and brave. Wow. This is not something Zhou Dongdong cares about very much, so even if it is Zhou Dongdong's problem, it doesn't matter. If he is hungry, he calls out twice for food. Shang Guandandan stood up, holding the kettle in one hand, and holding Zhou Dongdong in the other hand as he walked upstairs. In the past 2 days, Shang Guandandan had been worrying about Dongdong's mother's blind date. He didn't think about tea and rice. He only ate this morning 5 meat buns and a bowl of beef vermicelli soup with poached eggs. Now I am very hungry. Lu Chang'an took a casual look and saw that all the household appliances were in their normal positions. It seemed that Shang Guandandan finally realized that even if she took advantage of Lu Chang'an's departure from home to move away his household appliances, he would eventually move them back. He stopped trying to take possession of all his household appliances. Coming upstairs, Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan stayed in the kitchen to show their serious concern about what to eat for lunch. Lu Chang'an kicked them out and helped Zhou Shuling, but when it came time to mix the sauce and stir-fry, Zhou Shuling naturally changed to the position of the helper and stood beside him to hand him things. I don't know how much weight I will gain if I eat this lunch, Zhou Shuling said with some worry. In fact, she had never cared about her weight and figure before. It was Lu Chang'an who always said that she was average looking and made her fatter. I developed a rebellious mentality and always wanted to prove myself, so I was particularly concerned about it. But after cooking so many dishes, she had to eat more, otherwise the leftovers would be wasted. Take Dongdong and Dandan to square dance at night. They always sit next to the electric heating table. They are almost out of hibernation. This is not a problem, Lu Chang'an suggested. Are you going? Zhou Shuling looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. I don't know how to dance, you teach me. I know how to do it. You will definitely do it. Young people are generally not associated with square dancing, but Zhou Shuling feels that if Lu Chang'an went to square dancing, there would be no incongruous feeling at all. He might still be the most handsome man among the square dancing crowd. Okay, I'll take you there someday. Zhou Shuling was very happy. I made a 3-juice stew pot at noon. When I buy too many meats and vegetables, making a stew pot is a very suitable choice and can save a lot of work. The most important thing about the stew pot is the preparation of the sauce, which must be done by Lu Chang'an. Zhou Shuling always likes to add hot sauce or chili powder when making the sauce. Zhou Shuling was not idle either. She tore the skin of the grass fruit and took out the seeds, ground them in a mashing bowl, chopped the skin and mixed them together. She also mixed ammonium villicum, pepper oil, salt, and vinegar to make a cold sauce. Lu Chang'an debones the pig's trotters, cuts them into small pieces, boils them and drains them, wraps them in gauze to squeeze out the water, and then mixes them with Zhou Shuling's cold sauce. It's crisp, refreshing and not greasy, and it's perfect for drinking. The key to this dish is to cut the pig's trotter's skin and tendons into small pieces. It should be cooked just right. If it is cooked for too long, it will become hard. The water must be squeezed out in time. If it is not cooked well, it will have a great impact on the taste. Our new store in Hexi will be officially under construction after the year. I plan to have a special dish in the new store, which will be a little different from the old store. It can form different characteristics and build a reputation that everyone should try it in different stores. Zhou Shuling tasted the cold pork trotters and had an idea. Yeah, Lu Chang'an nodded. Then let's take this dish. Zhou Shuling thinks it's quite delicious, and it's a dish she made in collaboration with him. It's quite commemorative and symbolizes the close relationship between the two founders of the Hong Soup La Rooster brand. Just as delicious as pig's feet. For pepper oil, you can provide a separate oil dish for diners to choose, because many people are not used to it. Put cayenne pepper oil, sesame pepper oil, red pepper oil, sesame oil, let the guests choose to add a little, and then help them stir it up. Lu Chang'an thought for a while. Okay. So what's the name of this special dish? Zhou Shuling's hoof. It's disgusting. You are the pig's trotter. Xiao Ling's pig trotters. You keep scolding me. Do you really think I'm fat? Zhou Shuling was worried that Lu Chang'an was implying that she was as fat as a pig. Smart. Lu Chang'an laughed. Looking at her serious frown, he still explained, don't lose weight. I'm just teasing you. It's just right. Zhou Shuling carefully judged whether he was telling the truth and laughed. During lunch, unexpectedly, Zhongqing came over. She is a normal and polite person, so she brought a lot of gifts when she came to pay her New Year greetings. She was followed by 4 men in black carrying gifts, and they all arranged the sofa full of gifts. It was during dinner time that Lu Chang'an stayed with Zhongqing to eat. He had something else he wanted Zhongqing to do. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 716. Zhou Shuling has always had a warm and hospitable temperament, and it is rare to entertain guests at home. When she saw Zhongqing wearing only thin semi-transparent flesh-colored stockings, she quickly brought the little son over. Give way. Zhou Shuling motioned to Lu Chang'an to move his seat. He and Zhongqing were so close that their legs were almost touching and the little son couldn't fit. Lu Chang'an moved away a little, and Zhongqing thanked her with a smile. In fact, she rarely did outdoor activities, and she was not very afraid of the cold. She was used to it even without wearing stockings, but wearing flesh-colored stockings in winter still looks better than bare legs. Zhou Shuling looked at Zhongqing with a little envy, and then sat back to the seat opposite her. Secretary Zhong had a really good figure, with straight and slender calves. Especially her sitting posture was very particular. Her calves were leaning together diagonally, with her toes touching the ground and her heels pointing. She was holding the legs of the stool and stretching the insteps straight, making her already tall legs look even straighter and slender. Among women who are about the same age as Zhong Qing, Zhou Shuling thought about it and found that Miss Jean's figure and appearance were better than Zhong Qing's. The main point was that, Miss Jean had an advantage that ordinary people could not match. Zhou Shuling lowered her head and looked at herself. Fortunately, she was almost the same as Secretary Zhong, but worse than Miss Jean. "Excuse me," Zhong Qing said to Zhou Shuling and withdrew his eyes from Zhou Shuling's waist and hips. "It's just a person like Lu Chang'an. How can ordinary men sit calmly in the face of such a beauty? It may not be easy to develop feelings between men and women, but it is easy to create ambiguous gossip in the eyes of others." But Zhong Qing knew in her heart that she had done embarrassing things to Lu Chang'an and knew that Lu Chang'an was not that kind of person. Thinking of the slap he struck that night, Zhong Qing still felt a little dizzy. "Why are you bothering me? Just add a pair of chopsticks." "Secretary Zhong, you can try the pig's trotter skin first and the juice I mixed with it." Zhou Shuling wanted to know what other people thought of this dish. "Okay." Zhong Qing picked up a pair of chopsticks. The pig's trotter skin was cooked and crystal clear, dyed with fiery red pepper oil, and finely chopped seasonings. The sight of it whetted your appetite, and it fell between your pretty lips. The snow-white teeth touched gently, and suddenly a truly beautiful and appetizing scene appeared. "It's really good. It feels very appetizing and refreshing. It makes you want to eat more," Zhong Qing said with a little surprise. Zhou Shuling was very happy and quickly reached out to pick up the plate and put it in front of Zhong Qing. As soon as her hand picked up the plate, she was held down by a small hand like a pig's trotter. Zhou Shuling slapped her little hand, replaced it with a pile of vegetables, and placed the pig's trotter skin in front of Zhong Qing, asking her to eat more. "Do you usually eat a lot?" Shang Guandandan pinched the long row of ribs and released the state of being controlled by the ribs. "Xiao Zhong." "Not much." Zhong Qing smiled and shook his head. Being called Xiao Zhong by a little girl, he didn't think Shang Guandandan was impolite, he just found it cute. Shang Guandandan nodded, ignored her, and continued eating his own ribs. "When will Zhu Huntang return to Junsha?" Lu Chang'an asked about business. "A young lady like Zhu Huntang who does nothing by herself often doesn't know as much about her schedule as the people responsible for arranging it. She will go to Jinling first, and then go back to Junsha with Miss Jean, just for a few days." Zhong Qing said. "It was arranged before the holiday. She has to make up for classes during the winter vacation, and she did not pass any of the final exams. Yan Qingchen will also arrive at school early so that he can come and teach her." Lu Chang'an sighed softly. Zhou Shuling handed him a can of beer, and Lu Chang'an drank it slowly. "This is also expected. We cannot expect Zhu Huntang to be any better than Zhou Dongdong in studies. One level. After dinner, I will give you a book list. You buy it for Zhu Huntang. When she comes back, I will be her other tutor. After Yan Qingchen has finished her class, I will teach it to her, or I will after finishing it, Yan Qingchen will serve it to her again." Lu Chang'an was not doing it for any other reason, it was just that Su Mei had entrusted him with this matter in Antarctica. He can't educate a sheep. Any circus animal trainer can do the job. Lu Chang'an is very confident. "Okay, no problem." Zhong Qing nodded vigorously, looking forward to it. She still had great confidence in Lu Chang'an, even though even the third wife couldn't do anything against Zhu Huntang. After dinner, Lu Chang'an wrote a list of books. Zhong Qing took out 2 red envelopes and handed one to Zhou Dongdong first. "I have 5 yuan. Zhou Dongdong opened the red envelope, took out the money, looked at it, and handed it to Zhou Shuling next to him. "A lot of money." Zhou Dongdong knew very well that only the small red envelopes given by adults were for Zhou Dongdong, and the ones with a lot of money were not given to Zhou Dongdong at all. "You can't have it, there are too many." Zhou Shuling saw it, but didn't dare to accept it, so she quickly stuffed it back. Her shop is in Bailong Center, so she should give a gift to Secretary Zhong. She can't take such a big red envelope, it's really embarrassing to send so many things here. Why are you so polite? This is the red envelope given to Dongdong by Mr. Zhongqing opened Zhou Dongdong's pocket and stuffed it in. Keep it, Lu Chang'an said without raising his head. Zhou Shuling stopped being polite. Zhongqing handed another one to Shang Guandandan. I have a lot of money. Shang Guandandan took out the red RMB and counted it 3 times, and couldn't help but laugh. Recently, she had spent more money than she could, and she had saved some. With today's red envelope, she can buy an electric car. Lu Chang'an handed the written list to Zhongqing, who accepted it and decided not to report the matter to the third lady for the time being, otherwise she might try to delay her return to Junxia. Zhongqing was very polite, and Lu Chang'an was also a very particular person. He walked Zhongqing to the gate of the community, watched her get in the car and leave, and waved before walking back. Master Lu, wait a moment. Lu Chang'an looked back and saw that it was old man Jian. He became wary. I didn't expect that you, a bad old man, would actually find out that I am a martial arts master. Are you the same? You are still a good counselor. I heard from my granddaughter that you always fight in school. After beating classmates, you beat the monitor, after beating the squad leader, you beat the student union president, and you also beat your class teacher. You are really good at fighting. This is not master, old man Jian said presciently, I'm just saying that you can't be famous because of your studies. Yeah, Lu Chang'an nodded. But it's understandable to be young and energetic. When I was young, I often fought with people, from Hedong to Hexi. Just tell me if you have something to say, and stop bragging. Am I bragging? Lao Si is recalling the turbulent years of those years. There is something. Didn't the street office recently hold a square dance competition? We are short of a few people, so you can make up the number. Look for Zhou Shuling. Can she dance? Am I good at it? It's really baffling. Why do everyone think he can dance in the square? You certainly will. If you find Zhou Shuling, if you find a young and beautiful woman to join your team, isn't it better than finding me to get extra points? After saying that, Lu Chang'an left. Old Jian thought about it for a while. The truth was obvious, but why was this guy the first thing he thought about when he thought about it? Lu Chang'an stayed at home in the afternoon to play cards with Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan. He won 5 yuan from Zhou Dongdong and more than half of Shang Guandandan's New Year's money. He then taught Zhou Shuling how to dance and received Gao Duai in the evening. The message asked Lu Chang'an to go to his house tomorrow to play and have a class reunion. All kinds of requests. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 717. In the morning, Lu Chang'an opened his eyes comfortably. There was a warm feeling in the room, but the windows were not closed tightly, letting in a bit of cool breeze. On the contrary, it made people feel comfortable and clear-headed, unlike many times in hot environments. Feeling dizzy after sleeping for too long. There was some heat under the body. Lu Chang'an touched the blanket and felt that it had become thicker. There seemed to be an electric blanket under the sheets. This was probably done by Zhou Shuling because she had nothing to do. Except for the elderly and women, who would sleep with a young man with such strong firepower. Lu Chang'an turned around and found that this was an induction heating device and the switch was not obvious, but he found the plug, reached out and pulled out the plug, and continued to lie down. Lu Chang'an was about to enjoy the good time of getting up early, flipping through his phone in bed, and asking An Nuan to send some private selfies, when he heard Shangwen's footsteps coming from the living room. Zhou Dongdong's footsteps were like the roar of a landslide and a snowy mountain collapsing. It was very heavy. Zhou Shuling always walked lightly for fear of disturbing others. Only Shang Guandandan could make the light footsteps of calm pacing. She stood motionless in the living room for a while, which aroused Lu Chang'an's suspicion. When she came over and knocked on the door, Lu Chang'an closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. Shang Guandandan knocked on the door. Lu Chang'an lay motionless, imitating the autistic state of Shang Guan lying in the coffin. Shang Guandandan pushed the door open and came in. Lu Chang'an found her standing next to the bed, and then heard a small sound, as if she had taken off her shoes and sat on the bed. What is she going to do? Lu Chang'an was a little suspicious that she was doing it for the 3,000 yuan she lost to him yesterday. After Lu Chang'an won Zhou Dongdong's 5 yuan yesterday, Zhou Dongdong's total New Year's money was only 5 yuan, so Zhou Dongdong stopped playing. Shang Guandandan played with Lu Chang'an for a while. After losing 100 yuan, she didn't plan to play anymore, but Lu Chang'an returned the 100 yuan to her, and Shang Guandandan continued to play. Later, Lu Chang'an lost another 300 and returned it to her. After playing around, Shang Guandandan lost another 1,000 yuan, but Lu Chang'an still returned it to her. In the end, Shang Guandandan lost 3,000 yuan, and Lu Chang'an didn't pay it back to her. After all, there had to be a prize in playing cards. If he paid it all back to her, then his luck in playing cards this year would be damaged. What's more, Lu Chang'an almost paid her back 3,000 yuan, so the 3,000 yuan she lost has actually been returned to her. The 3,000 yuan in his hand now belongs to something extravagant, not her own. Yes, then why would Lu Chang'an return it to her? This Shang Guandandan is not as grand as Zhou Dongdong. After Zhou Dongdong lost yesterday, he just howled a few times and accepted the reality. Just as he was thinking this, Lu Chang'an felt that Shang Guandandan was lying on his side under the quilt, facing him. Lu Chang'an lay quietly for a while. Although he was definitely not inferior to Shang Guandandan in terms of patience, he had something to do today. So he opened his eyes, turned his eyes to the right, and saw Shang Guandandan looking at him quietly with his eyes wide open and a sweet smile on his face. "You're awake." Shang Guandandan reached out and pressed the edge of the quilt on Lu Chang'an's shoulders to prevent him from getting up. "What are you going to do?" Shang Guandandan brought his coat over, then reached out and grabbed Lu Chang'an's head and lifted his upper body up. "I'll help you get dressed." Shang Guandandan stood behind Lu Chang'an, with his knees on his back, tucking him into his clothes. Then he climbed to the bedside, found Lu Chang'an's shoes, pinched Lu Chang'an's toes and stuffed them in. "Are you treating him like a rag doll?" Lu Chang'an had seen Zhou Dongdong playing with a rag doll before, and that was how it was done. After finishing these things, Shang Guandandan jumped onto her shoes that were placed beside the bed and stood there, looking at Lu Chang'an with wide eyes. Lu Chang'an walked out of the bedroom and went to wash his face and brush his teeth. Shang Guandandan ran to the bathroom holding up her skirt, then took a toothbrush and squeezed a long strip of toothpaste on it. After Lu Chang'an came in, Shang Guandandan stood on the small stool, pinched Lu Chang'an's mouth, and stuffed the toothbrush into it. "Help him brush his teeth." Is there any other treatment in history for the Queen Mother to wait on the washers? Lu Chang'an let her do what she wanted and looked at her sideways. Those Queen Mothers of subjugated or weak countries, but none of them are as noble as me. After Shang Guandandan finished speaking, he puffed up his cheeks to make himself look more upright and majestic. For such a noble Queen Mother, compared with her current behavior of serving him, I hope he will be better because of this. Be moved. Thank you. Lu Chang'an was not moved. Shang Guandandan took another towel and wet it, wrung out some of the water and rubbed it on Lu Chang'an's face. Lu Chang'an took a cell phone and filmed the process of how she washed his face. After helping him wash up, Shang Guandandan tugged on his clothes, turned her head away from him, and ran in front of him little by little. She tilted her head and looked at him with wide eyes, gesturing for him to look at her too. This scene was very familiar. Sometimes Lu Chang'an would go out with her. After walking a little further, she would not be able to walk anymore. She would not speak, just expressing hope that he could understand the meaning in his eyes. Lu Chang'an sat down and turned on his phone. Zhou Shuling sent a photo. She was making crispy barbecue in the kitchen and it would be a while before breakfast. Taking a look at her kitchen, she found that she cooks breakfast less and less now, which shows that Zhou Shuling's skills have also improved a lot. Shang Guandandan jumped up to the opposite side of him, moved a stool and sat down, placing his hands on the electric heating table, resting his cheek on the back of his hands and looking at him. "Where is your thermos pot?" Lu Chang'an laughed. "Aren't you touching the thermos pot at this time?" "I touched it for a long time last night." "It's no use." Shang Guandandan stretched out her hand and then remembered that the thermos was not with her. When she woke up this morning, she didn't even boil water. Okay, Lu Chang'an casually lifted the blanket on the electric heating table, and underneath was the 3,000 yuan he won from her yesterday. Shang Guandandan suddenly saw himself riding an electric bicycle at great speed, looking at him with joy. "I put clothes and shoes on you every day, wash your face and brush your teeth." "No, as long as you don't come here to dress me, put on shoes, wash my face and brush my teeth, you can take the money back." This is what Lu Chang'an is worried about. "Aren't you very happy?" Shang Guandandan was very confused. Lu Chang'an played the clip he had just taken of her washing his face, then went to the bathroom to get a towel, held Shang Guandandan's face and rubbed it again. "Are you happy?" Shang Guandandan opened his mouth but said nothing. He took 3,000 yuan and went downstairs to boil water. He didn't have a thermos kettle next to him and didn't want to talk to him. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 718. Zhou Shuling blanched a few carefully selected pieces of pork belly last night and marinated them. By this morning, they were perfectly marinated and delicious. She was inspired by the details of how Lu Chang'an made tiger skin pork belly on New Year's Eve. She used toothpicks to poke many holes in the pig skin, then brushed it with a layer of white vinegar and honey. It is said that it is best to use a hanging stove to make crispy barbecue, but Zhou Shuling does not have a hanging stove. She only has an oven that can be redeemed with mobile phone points. She wraps the lean and fat parts of the marinated pork belly in tin foil and puts it in the oven. When the three were called for breakfast, Zhou Shuling's crispy barbecue had a golden and crispy exterior, and the lean meat was slightly charred, but the gravy inside was completely locked in. She cut a piece of it and stuffed it into her mouth. It felt extremely tender and the gravy splashed out. Laser, the essence of meat blooms in the mouth, impacting every taste bud. Zhou Shuling prepared the sauce, but except for Shang Guandandan who dipped it in the sweet and spicy sauce, Lu Chang'an and Zhou Dongdong ate it directly. Seeing them eating with concentration, Zhou Shuling was infinitely satisfied. She put her hands on the table and held her cheeks, looking at Lu Chang'an for a while, Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan for a while. What a blessing! Lu Chang'an took a piece and fed it to Zhou Shuling. She watched others eating it with a silly smile on her face. When Zhou Shuling saw his chopsticks stretched out, she was a little worried that her mouth would be smeared with oil, so she didn't dare to refuse, so she quickly opened her mouth and bit the piece of meat. "How are you feeling recently?" Lu Chang'an asked. Zhou Shuling still maintained her previous habits of sleeping late and getting up early. It is not acceptable for ordinary people to do this for a long time. "I'm quite energetic," Zhou Shuling said happily. "I put a little of the small bottle you gave me into water every day to drink. Keep it up, and I'll give it to you again when you've finished drinking it." "Okay, does the bland effervescent water look like this too?" "No, her effervescent water tastes terrible. It's like boiling a bottle of Mirinda and drinking it." Shang Guandandan glared at Lu Chang'an. She would not enter the barrier after eating like Zhou Dongdong. He actually said something bad about her to her face without knowing how to avoid it. She completely disrespected the Queen Mother's taste. Yaya gave me new effervescent tablets. I searched online for them. They were expensive and delicious. Shangguan Dandan poured 2 cups for Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong, and drank from the lid himself. Then he nodded seriously, "It tastes good. I also know how to go to shopping websites. I guess I will be the kind of person who has a full shopping cart but no money to empty it out." Lu Chang'an is pleased that she is more adaptable and integrated into modern life, but he will not help her empty her shopping cart in the future. Plan of: Dong Dong Mom, let's buy an electric car today, so that our family will have our first car. Shangguan Dandan looked at Zhou Shuling expectantly, because the store in Bailong Center has already opened. I wonder if Zhou Shuling has time to accompany her to buy an electric car. Shangguan Dandan was originally waiting for Lu Chang'an to go with her, but yesterday this man tried to prevent Shangguan Dandan from buying an electric car by winning away her New Year's money. Okay, but I don't understand very well. Zhou Shuling agreed to go with Shangguan Dandan without confidence. After hearing Zhou Shuling's answer, Shangguan Dandan turned around and looked at Lu Chang'an with Zhou Shuling with slight expectancy, hoping that he could understand the mood of the 2 women when they were adding large items to the family. Lu Chang'an had already finished eating and was feeding the dog the leftovers from Zhou Shuling's crispy barbecue. After he took Lu Sin for a walk and came back, he found a group of old men and women gathered near the grape trellis. Zhou Shuling and Shangguan Dandan were among them. Zhou Dongdong was holding a small airplane toy and standing against the wall. It turned out that Zhou Shuling had been recruited into the square dance team by old man Qian. Zhou Shuling reported in the WeChat group of the square dance team that Lu Chang'an's dance teacher was very good, so everyone waited here for teacher Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an has always been a good talker. From an objective standpoint that the core values of socialism guide the need for spiritual civilization construction, Lu Chang'an decided to enrich the spiritual life of this group of old men and women who only know how to fight off beards and mahjong. At the same time, you can show your higher style. I will only be your coach. Lu Chang'an is indifferent to fame and fortune, and is not very interested in the title of Square Dance King. Are you really good at dancing? Mrs. Lu was a little skeptical. After all, she hadn't really seen it before, so she only heard what Zhou Shuling said. Old Mrs. Lu raised her hands above her head, pointing at the orchids, turning her wrists relative to each other, and turning the flower hands twice to show off her elegant dance moves. Spiritual old Madame Lu. Chang'an pointed at old Madame Lu and said to the others, folk dance, jazz dance, Latin dance, ballet, modern dance, etc. Is there anything I can't do? Don't think that square dancing is easy. Square dance is the largest system in dance art, and any dance element can be integrated into it. Therefore, only a versatile person like me can truly master the work of a square dance coach. Stop spinning, your fancy hands are spinning it so fast. Do you want to take off? You're just a bitch. Do you still want to buy my local eggs? Old Mrs. Lu was a little annoyed. She saw the Douyin video taken by her grandson, and it looked so beautiful. Don't be angry, old man Qian coughed. He intended to compete for the position of captain of the square dance team and said majestically, I heard from the coach that Zayazi is still quite capable. Don't you know what he is good at? I mainly teach you basic preparation movements to stimulate the vitality in the body, so that the movements are more flexible and improve learning efficiency. For the real dance, I will find a teacher to teach you. We don't dance any 16 steps, Phoenix Legend, Little Apple, and so on. Let's dance Earn Seed, Siren, Love Cycle and the like to prove to young people that you are not left behind and that you are on trend. Okay. Good. High morale and being able to prove that they are not left behind are the most fervent desires of the elderly. Lu Chang'an taught everyone a set of aerobics, which is similar to his original height-growing exercise. It can improve the coordination of the body. If you practice the set more, you will have no problem with your body coordination when learning to dance. Zhou Shuling finally showed off her talent, which turned out to be square dancing and aerobics. She learned it quickly, while the little old lady and stupid children could only twist around randomly, but they also had a lot of fun. Lu Chang'an taught for an hour and then walked slowly to Gao Dui's house. It was clearing after the snow, and the sunlight seemed to diffuse through a layer of gauze, casting a layer of halo on the edge of the gray, cold, damp city. The warm and harvestful scenes of summer and autumn are suitable for the book of songs, but the scene in front of me is more suitable for the style of many words and sentences in the collection of flowers. Lu Chang'an was about to recite a poem when he suddenly saw 3 cantharides of the family Corinthaceae performing a courtship ceremony. One male was gently tapping another female with his forelimbs, and there was another female moving beautifully and sexily next to him. The body displays its bright patterns, eager for the male to transfer the cantharidin in its gonads to its vagina. The courtship of insects is very interesting. Some of them use odor, some use sounds, and some bump their heads. Lu Chang'an saw the male bug patting the female bug on the left for a while, and then patting the female on the right. After making a choice, he couldn't help but sneered and decided to fight for love. He stretched out his fingers and stroked the 2 female insects rhythmically. Soon the 2 females gave up on the male insect and hugged Lu Chang'an tightly. Fingers. The male worm angrily bumped into Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an retracted his finger, but the 2 female worms were no longer interested in it. They bit it and left with a beautiful body that the male worm could no longer match. Lu Chang'an also left happily. After walking a few steps, a question came to mind: how come there are cantharis mating here during the season? Maybe it's a resurgence of spiritual energy. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 719. Lu Chang'an walked to Gao Dui's house, and it was about time for lunch. Gao Dui came out to pick him up. Lu Chang'an saw a majestic Yanglu tractor driving over from a distance, and Gao Dui waved in the cab. My tractor is handsome, it just crushed a bunch of toy cars. Gao Dui stopped the car next to Lu Chang'an, jumped out, raised his hand and patted the wheel and said, "Tractor racing or drift racing?" Lu Chang'an laughed and climbed into the cab. "I'll give it a try." There was only one seat in the cab of the tractor. Lu Chang'an sat on it. Gao Dui stepped on the pedals and hung out of the car, saying, "No, my brother and the others found a road with large puddles and dirt slopes, so they went to test the off-road. The off-road capabilities of the vehicles were compared on the mud slope. Finally, I drove the tractor over and beat them. They found it boring and came back to prepare for dinner. A man's happiness is so simple, he can play in puddles and dirt slopes for a long time. There is no need to optimize large tractors for off-road capabilities. They simply rely on their large size and high horsepower to crush normal off-road vehicles." Gao Dui's brothers are obviously very normal men. Normal men like to argue about which off-road vehicles to use. The car is more capable. Some hidden psychological research shows that men verify the off-road ability of off-road vehicles just as they like to verify and brag about their male abilities. Therefore, when their financial ability is enough to choose their favorite off-road vehicles, they like to compare themselves with each other. The vehicle's off-road capabilities. It would be a bit vulgar for everyone to directly compare their own male abilities, but using another method is more on the table and can satisfy men's desire to compare. In other words, adult men's comparison of car performance is essentially the same as their childhood comparison of who can pee farther. Men are so simple. Gao Dui's tractor should not participate in this kind of competition. Lu Chang'an was driving this majestic Yanglu tractor. There was nothing special that Gao Dui needed to give him, because the main function of this thing was not racing. The structure and layout of the cab, not much different from decades ago, still those joysticks and buttons. After all, Lu Chang'an was also a man who built a new socialist countryside on fertile fields while driving a tractor. If other students want to play with his beloved tractor, Gao Dui will definitely not let him. Lu Chang'an can drive it when he sits on it, but Gao Dui doesn't find it strange. Is there anything Chang'an can't do? Gao Dui had always been very proud of his friend and guided Lu Chang'an to the parking lot. Lu Chang'an saw several off-road vehicles that seemed to have rolled in the mud. There were actually two acquaintances beside them, Gao Qunyi and Gao Yeneng. Gao Yeneng is your cousin, Lu Chang'an said with some surprise. This man seems to have stopped pursuing Lu Yuwang recently. I don't know if it is true that all contact information has been blocked by Lu Yuwang. Yes, do you know each other? Gao Dui greeted happily, second brother, come here. Gao Yeneng and Gao Qunyi walked over together and greeted Lu Chang'an in surprise. Gao Qunyi already knew that Lu Chang'an was his cousin's classmate, but Gao Yeneng only found out. Are you going to pay Professor Lu a New Year's greeting? Lu Chang'an asked Gao Yeneng casually after greeting them. Gao Yeneng scratched the back of his head. Brother Lu, come to the martial arts gym when you have time. If your hands are itchy, I will find a few people to fight with you, Gao Qunyi invited. Why don't you come on your own? Gao Dui said with a smile. When I saw his fist, I felt sore all over, Gao Qunyi said with a smile. Chang'an has no problem challenging your martial arts school alone. He is the consultant of our martial arts school. How could he challenge our martial arts gym? He is challenging himself. Hey, I also want to be a martial arts master. After a few chats, Gao Dui and Lu Chang'an went to find their classmates. High school class reunions are still arranged near the farmhouse. Gao Dui's father, Gao Yuanshan, feels that the short-term tourism market for city dwellers to go on vacation during the New Year and holidays is becoming more and more prosperous. He has also expanded the farmhouse, from New Year's Eve to the third day of the Lunar New Year. All the rooms are full, and some rooms have been vacated today so that students can stay overnight. Especially the New Year's Eve dinner in the farmhouse, you can cook it yourself. Although the rural environment is not exactly the same as my childhood memories, it can also satisfy the feelings of many middle-aged and elderly people, and they are often the ones who can decide where to live. Where do the young and old spend the New Year? Lu Chang'an, walk faster, I'm waiting for you to eat. Lu Chang'an had just walked to the small bridge in front of the farmhouse. His sharp-eyed classmates saw Lu Chang'an and greeted him. Lu Chang'an walked a little faster. There are less than 20 classmates here today. As everyone expected, it is basically impossible for everyone to gather together after high school graduation. Life is like this, many people will never be seen again as soon as they turn around. Some of them are casual acquaintances, some are close relatives and friends, and some are loved ones who are willing to sacrifice their lives for them. People throughout the ages have left eternal articles with such moods and sighs. Lu Chang'an thought for a while, and with such a mood, he quickly greeted everyone, let's eat. It has been more than 8 months since I graduated from high school. During the short freshman semester, my classmates have changed a lot from their familiar impressions to their current appearance. Some of them even feel like they have changed their appearance. Some female students learned to put on makeup and dress up, and they felt completely different. The male students mainly changed their temperament. They changed their hairstyle and dressing style, but the changes were not as big as those of the female students. In fact, Gao Dui has changed a lot among the male classmates. He is much stronger than when he just graduated from high school, but he still has a crew cut with glasses. The change in body shape is greater than the change in temperament. Bai Hui's change was expected by everyone, because in high school, beautiful girls always wore school uniforms. Everyone could imagine that a girl like her would be completely different in college, just like a poodle getting a perfect face. It is common for dogs to be groomed, but among common pet dog breeds, poodles have the most malleable hair. A poodle's hair grooming can improve its temperament and appearance, which is as big a difference as a girl wearing makeup. Miao Yingying seemed to have grown up twice. She wore a down jacket on the outside and a small suspender on the inside, which showed that her curve fluctuations were increasing compared with those in high school. Lin Xinhua has not changed much, he is just more confident and cheerful. After all, he is doing what he likes and his income is good. He has attracted some fans with his operation. The co-branded sneakers under his feet are reminiscent of the time when he gave shoes to Miao Yingying. The scene where Miao Yingying threw away the box was a little bit embarrassing. Lu Chang'an and Gao Duai sat down, and Miao Yingying called Bai Fen, who was standing by the fish pond, bending over to poke carp with a small fishing rod, to come and sit down. At classmates' gatherings, the seats are not so particular, and there is no distinction between those who sit first and those who sit first. In such cases, those who arrive first sit together, and the last few people sit together naturally. Apart from the seat next to Lu Chang'an, there was no other seat. Bai Hui looked left and right and had no choice but to sit next to Lu Chang'an. "Hi, long time no see." Bai Hui waved with a small movement and kept chatting with familiar classmates, neither exaggerated enthusiasm nor unfamiliar polite tone. "We often play in the Bailong Center during the winter vacation. I haven't seen you before, quite busy, right?" Chang'an went to Antarctica. Gao Dui looked at Bai Hui across Lu Chang'an and said knowingly, "You don't know." I don't know. Bai Hui actually knew, but Lu Chang'an didn't tell her, so of course he didn't know. He didn't even think about telling her. Could it be that she wanted to expose that she had specifically inquired about him? Whereabouts? So Bai Hui asked again, "Is Antarctica fun?" "It must be fun. Do you still have to ask?" "It's better than the shopping malls you often go to." "The shopping mall is more fun," Gao Dui said again. "When did you come back?" "My cousin still wants to have a drink with you," Bai Hui said again. "I came back on New Year's Eve. I just asked." "How is your cousin's drinking ability?" "Chang'an can drink your whole family down," Gao Dui added. Bai Hui took a deep breath and looked forward, but right in front of her was Qianning, so she lowered her head again and pretended to look at her plate, but the plate disappeared again, so she quickly stepped back a little and saw her plate. "Gao Dui, are you talking to me?" Miao Yingying glared at Gao Dui, really having no eyesight at all. "But it's normal." In Gao Dui's eyes, only An Nuan is worthy of Lu Chang'an, and he never thinks that other girls might like Lu Chang'an. "Anis," Lu Chang'an laughed when he heard Miao Yingying's novel name for Bayan. "Isn't it cute?" Bai Hui pursed her lips, a little unhappy. After all, it had been so long since the winter vacation and it was just the first time they met, and he didn't have any tender eyes like a reunion after a long separation. This is Lu Chang'an under normal circumstances, and on the day he confessed his love, he showed him a little tenderness. This title reminds me of something. Geixen Miscellaneous Knowledge records some things. People in the Song dynasty used to beautify pet dogs. He said that girls like to pound the impatiens and get the juice to dye their fingernails. For the red impatiens flower, mash the leaves and add a little alum. Wash your nails, use this to apply to the nail, and wrap it with a piece of silk overnight. The dyeing is light at first, but after 3 or 5 times, the color becomes like rouge and cannot be removed by washing. There is a Hui woman. I'm so happy about this. Maybe I would dye my hands and play with cats and dogs. Lu Chang'an still clearly remembers many life events in the Song dynasty, when women's entertainment life and makeup industry were already highly developed. "Is that Hui the same as me?" Bai Hui admired angrily. "This person can really talk nonsense." So when I heard the name Anixi, I thought of these careful records and related it to pet grooming. Then, I just think you have changed a lot compared to when you were in high school, just like those ordinary poodles. It feels completely different after beauty treatment." Lu Chang'an explained that people's thinking often jumps in such natural and reasonable ways. "Isn't this normal? Are you scolding me, or are you praising me?" Bai Hui was a little unsure. A poodle that wasn't well groomed was like an ugly duckling, but after grooming, it was as elegant and gorgeous as a white swan. The point is that it feels a bit inappropriate to compare a person's changes to pet grooming. But Lu Chang'an always used strange metaphors, and he didn't necessarily mean to scold her, so Bai Hui just pressed her chest a little and didn't decide to get angry immediately. Of course I'm scolding you, Miao Yingying said with certainty. Lu Chang'an doesn't praise others. Hearing this, Bai Hui suddenly realized that after knowing Lu Chang'an for so long, apart from occasionally praising her for her big breasts, he mostly scolded her. You call me a dog, I'll bite you later. Bai Hui decided to get angry and didn't want to talk to Lu Chang'an anymore. He took out his mobile phone and sent him a text message, then pointed to his mobile phone and motioned for him to read it later. Information. Have a meal, Gao Dui greeted everyone enthusiastically. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 720. The food on the dining table is very rich, mostly domestic bamboo chicken, plump lake fish in winter, black pigs killed during festivals. It is the noble breed of pigs that Gao Dui believes is better to raise than investing in makeup and beauty. There was a hole dug in the center of the dining table. Below was a blazing charcoal fire. On top was a large exposed copper cauldron. The fire was burning vigorously and the soup was boiling. It was filled with overcooked lamb chops and lamb legs, without any bones. Although it lacks the fun of chewing bones, it makes people more able to eat meat heartily. In Sushi's hometown Hot Pot province, there is a popular saying, if suwen is cooked, eat mutton. If suwen is raw, eat vegetable soup. Everyone should eat more mutton. Our mutton has no odor. Today's recipe is simple. Boiled in spring water with almonds, green onions, and Sichuan peppercorns, this is an ancient way of cooking it. It is different from the heavy flavored mutton in many places now, so everyone should eat more. Gao Dui introduced this dish. Why is Sushi from the Hot Pot province? Isn't he from Jiangsu and Zhejiang? Miao Yingying asked strangely. No, Sushi's courtesy name is Zizan, his name is Dongpo Jushi, Han nationality. From Meishan. Bai Hui had not forgotten all her high school knowledge and memorized a section. Miao Yingying, do you think it's because your name has 3 prefixes with grass, which makes your brain similar to that of herbivores, pigs, cows, and sheep? Gao Dui usually has a lot of contact with Miao Yingying in the capital. I always feel that as soon as she entered college, Miao Yingying lost all the basic knowledge in high school, and the decline in her IQ was shocking. No, my name means that I am like grass. Miao Yingying was not angry. She was used to it. Instead, she had an idea. I am grass, so of course my boyfriend eats grass. Whoever is my boyfriend is a pig, cow, sheep, etc. Miao Yingying glanced at Gao Dui and said with a cold snort. If you scold her now, you will definitely do it in the future. To come back to him. Miao Yingying felt that if she really got together with such a disgusting Gao Dui in the future, it would be just to vent her anger. Gao Dui laughed. Unexpectedly Miao Yingying actually knew self-deprecating humor. Speaking of which, the word fennel for bifen also starts with the prefix grass. Lu Chang'an said as if he had just discovered it. This is another way that birds of a feather flock together. Gao Dui also found the ingenious patterns in ordinary things, but because bifen only has 1 grass prefix, she looks smarter than Miao Yingying, who has 3 grass prefixes. Then what's the reason why you and Lu Chang'an are attracted by birds of a feather? Bai Hui asked back. Gao Dui thought for a while, and thoughtfully did not say that he and Lu Chang'an had higher IQs, so as not to make Bai Hui and Miao Yingying feel inferior. Our names all have 3 characters. You made a mistake. Lu Chang'an corrected Gao Dui. Bai Hui's name only has the prefix cao, but because there are 4 ways to write the word fen, Bai Hui actually has 4 cao prefixes. Ha ha ha. Gao Dui laughed heartily. Bai Hui was already so angry that she only wanted to send messages to talk to Lu Chang'an. When she heard him laughing at her again, she took out her phone and took a selfie with an angry pout and sent it to him. But he was not reminded to read the message. I don't believe there are really 4 ways to write the word fennel. Lu Chang'an, if you can, write it down and see, Miao Yingying said, unconvinced. She thought this was just a joke. Yes, Bai Hui responded to Miao Yingying's support. Then I've written it out. Can you have a glass of wine each? Lu Chang'an said with a smile. Okay, Miao Yingying agreed on behalf of Bai Hui. Bai Hui would definitely be willing. Her best friend is the one who goes shopping at discounts and is stupid together. Gao Duai shook his head. Miao Yingying was always so unintelligent and inexplicably confident, just like she was playing chicken with chicken. When Tao Peiwen came to Junxia to play, she actually dared to solo with Tao Peiwen. Lu Chang'an imitated Kong Yuji's gesture, dipped his hands in water and wrote the 4 words Hui, 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 Hui on the table, then added the prefix cao on it, and then added the word. This is not the traditional Chinese way of writing fennel. In fact, the word fennel can also be written as in the word fennel bean, because fennel beans are originally fennel beans. Northerners mispronounced it, and Mr. Lu Sun followed suit and wrote the word. No one talks about sweet beans anymore, everyone talks about fennel beans. Are you Kong Yuji himself? Miao Yingying looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief. There is another way to write the word Hui, but it is not included in modern fonts, so I won't write it. Lu Chang'an poured a glass of wine for both Miao Yingying and Bai Hui. I'm willing to admit defeat, drink it. Bai Hui and Miao Yingying snorted, but they didn't take advantage of their status as girls to act coquettishly. They drank the wine in one gulp and won the applause of the table. The atmosphere of everyone's meal became lively, and everyone enjoyed the meal heartily, feeling full and ready to urinate. After dinner, Miao Yingying and Bai Hui went back to the room, because Gao Duai did not reveal to her mother that Miao Yingying looked like Gao Yuanshan's first love. Miao Yingying is still very popular in front of Gao Duai's parents. I like it, so I prepared a room for her when she came here to play at the farmhouse, and kept her here for 2 more days. When the 2 of them came out, they met Lin Xinhua downstairs. How are you, DSB Team Super Jungler Lin Xinhua? Miao Yingying smiled. She probably had no grudges anymore, so her smile was like the sunshine in winter. There were no high and enthusiastic emotions, but she was not cold either. You and Gao Duai still haven't made any progress, Lin Xinhua said with a smile. What are you gossiping about? Miao Yingying was a little embarrassed. Of course she would not advertise her affection for Gao Duai everywhere. It would be so embarrassing if they couldn't be together in the end. It's just a bit emotional. I was the one chasing you, and now you are chasing him. I used to feel unbalanced, but now I think about it. I won't be the only one who will be sad. If you take care of me, someone will take care of you. Yu Lin Xinhua scratched his hair. Don't think too much, just feel free to express your emotions. It's just that we are old friends, so I feel free to speak out what's on my mind. I don't want to hide it. I'm not that stingy. I understand what you said. Miao Yingying sighed softly. Bai Hui glanced at Qian Ning and Lu Yuan who were following him from a distance, and then looked at Lu Chang'an. Lin Xinhua was like this, Miao Yingying was like this, so why not herself? If you make others uncomfortable, there will always be others who will make you uncomfortable. When will we go to an esports hotel to play games like we did last time? Lin Xinhua also glanced at Lu Chang'an. I still want to take revenge on Lu Chang'an. If Bai Hui hadn't caused trouble last time, I wouldn't have lost. Am I causing trouble? I killed Lu Chang'an with you, and you couldn't beat him. You can win alone, everyone knows that there is strength in numbers. Bai Hui doesn't think it is his fault, but the male children are always like this, they like to be competitive, and they like to find excuses when they lose. Next time you and Lu Chang'an go together, you two will fight me to see if he can win." Lin Xinhua laughed and decided that if we play again next time, we must arrange it like this. Okay, Bai Hui looked forward to it. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 721. After Lin Xinhua said that, he left. There were still quite a few classmates staying in Junsha. It would not be difficult to arrange another game party in the esports hotel. He sent a message to his girlfriend Yu Shui to report that he had indeed met Miao Yingying today. Things like this, and then glanced at Jian Ning and Lu Yuan who were walking towards Bai Hui. Lin Xinhua greeted them with a smile and sighed softly in his heart. He actually understood how Jian Ning and Lu Yuan felt when they saw Bai Hui again. It is always difficult for a man to forget his first love, and it is also difficult for a man to forget the first woman he fell in love with. His first loves were Xie Guangkan, Lu Nang, Zhao Si, Wang Laokai, and Xie Dejiao. Even though they already had children and grandchildren, whenever something happened to Xie Dejiao, the gentlemen would immediately gather together anxiously. Some say first love is the first time you fall in love, some say first love is the first time you fall in love with someone else. Miao Yingying is Lin Xinhua's first love. They haven't been together for a long time, but they have liked her for a long time. Now they have been separated for a long time. When they meet again, they are just like ordinary friends. There is not necessarily much ambiguity, but there is always a softness of "I used to like you" in her tone and eyes. I have also been sad and resentful, but now I have really let go. It's not that I don't have any emotions for her, but I will never expect or fantasize about rekindling the old relationship with her. Lin Xinhua glanced at the expressions of Jian Ning and Lu Yuan and knew that their feelings for Bai Hui had not developed to Lin Xinhua's current state of mind. It would be difficult to talk to Bai Hui like ordinary friends, right? Why didn't you bring your girlfriends? Bai Hui saw Jian Ning and Lu Yuan. Although the occasional contact after high school graduation was not pleasant, she still showed a smile now. Many girls have not learned how to be good in bed. They all first developed excellent superficial skills. Some of the classmates who came today brought their girlfriends to play with them, but the family members they brought were originally classmates from the same school, and everyone knew them. There was a man named Luo Xiao who brought a girl who just went to high school last year. She is a girl. It is said that she was in the 3rd grade of junior high school when Luo Xiao met her. She was really worse than a beast. Bai Hui heard gossip just now that Lu Yuan's girlfriend Lin Li came to Junsha to play, but she didn't know if she was spending the new year at Lu Yuan's house. Bai Hui was a little amazed, if she could also ignore her reserve and stick to it with all her strength. Nothing. But it was normal for Lu Yuan to play with Lin Li or not today. Lu Chang'an didn't bring An Nuan here either. Jian Ning looked at Bai Hui expressionlessly. Miao Yingying glared at Jian Ning. In fact, Miao Yingying and Jian Ning and Lu Yuan also played well in high school, but now they are much more distant, and they can't hear Jian Ning's shady words. Before Miao Yingying could speak, Bai Hui said calmly, "I chatted with An Nuan until midnight last night. She usually stays at her grandpa's house during the spring festival. This year, the family is playing at the ski resort in Chenbai Mountain. You are also a little rich woman, and you feel that the quality of life is not as good as Anyuan. Why do you always stay in Junsha, and I don't see you going to any islands or ski resorts to check in?" Lu Yuan said with a half smile, and then suddenly realized, "I understand. Yeah, you have to arrange your time so that you can poach someone while An Nuan is away. I'm so mad at you, mother." Miao Yingying was almost furious. Although she also supported Bai Hui's poaching, she couldn't stand being ridiculed by others. She was even more annoyed that it was so easy to get together and get away. Do you understand? If you don't want it, you have to make trouble so that we can't meet each other in the future? Bai Hui grabbed Miao Yingying, who was dancing and trying to push Lu Yuan. After all, Miao Yingying was not Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang could just snap his fingers and a cart of breadmen would rush over and beat Lu Yuan half to death. Miao Yingying didn't have that ability. Yeah, what does it have to do with you? Bai Hui looked at Lu Yuan coldly. Lu Yuan and Qian Ning looked at each other in surprise, and then their eyes burned with anger. Why did she admit it? How could she admit it? What I said today is a bit bitchy, but you are the ones who forced me to do it. Do you feel that the girl you have liked for a long time and have been chasing but can't get is here to be coquettish and shameless to pursue a girl you didn't like before? Boys, your self-esteem has been hit. Can't you accept it? Bai Hui sneered. She would rather have a good impression of a boy who has a girlfriend, but not give you a chance, thinking that she is cool and noble in front of you. Are you feeling unbalanced because you act mean in front of others? Bai Hui finally figured it out. In the past, when she was ridiculed by Jianning, Lu Yuan, and their girlfriends, she always endured it and then looked aggrieved, but she was able to confront An Nuan after all. People, can't they fight back against Jianning and Lu Yuan? The words she said were not really what she meant, but if she hurt herself 800, she would hurt her enemy 1,000. The worst they could do was beat her. Okay, you Bai Hui. Qian pointed at Bai Hui, his hands shaking with anger. We are blind, Lu Yuan yelled angrily, then waved his hands and left. Qian raised his hand, but did not make a move after all. He snorted and caught up with Lu Yuan. You are so cruel, I am really afraid that they will beat you. Miao Yingying came back to her senses in shock. They are not Lu Chang'an, they don't dare to hit people casually. Bai Hui sighed and said, what she said today was indeed a bit excessive. Now she somewhat understands when Miao Yingying threw away the shoes given by Lin Xinhua. Method. Why do I feel that you are a little disappointed? Do you still hope that they will hit you? Miao Yingying looked at Bai Hui strangely, and then suddenly realized, yes, if they take action, Lu Chang'an might intervene. According to what you said before, based on Lu Chang'an's behavior in those things, he would probably throw Jianning and Lu Yuan into the pig pen of the Gao Duai family, and then put you in his arms and love you. What are you talking about? What I just said was to follow Jianning and Lu Yuan's wishes and hit them once. It's not true. Bai Hui quickly denied that he didn't think so at all. Lu Chang'an put Jianning and Lu Yuan. It was possible for Lu Yuan to be thrown into a pig pen, but it was impossible to hold her in his arms and love her. He would only push her away by her face to educate her. Okay, follow me to find Gao Duai. Miao Yingying took Bai Hui's hand. Bai Hui stood there without moving. She was pulled by Miao Yingying, and then she followed suit and walked towards Gao Duai and Lu Chang'an, as if she was being pulled by force. Gao Duai, I booked the high-speed train ticket back, Miao Yingying said to Gao Duai. The green train journey from Junxia to school was really long. Gao Duai tried a slow, stop-and-go trip to school. I will never try this again. During the holidays, I always take the high-speed rail or plane. Thank you. I'll transfer the money to you later. After all, we are old classmates and we often play together in the capital. Even though Miao Yingying is not very smart, Gao Duai also feels that he has a good relationship with her. The two of them started school at the same time. They made an appointment to go back to school together. Miao Yingying actively expressed that she would book tickets, and Gao Duai had no objection. Bai Hui smiled slightly. Miao Yingying had certainly taken her care. She ordered a sleeping room, so Miao Yingying had slept with Gao Duai. After racking his brains to think about it, he and Lu Chang'an seemed to have never been alone for such a long time, let alone involving such an ambiguous element as the bed. Did you order a sleeping room? Lu Chang'an said suddenly. Miao Yingying was surprised. Where did Lu Chang'an know this? She couldn't help but glance at Bai Hui next to her. No one could leak it to Lu Chang'an except Bai Hui. Bai Hui shook her head quickly. I haven't sat on a sleeper seat before. Is it similar to a soft sleeper seat on an ordinary train? Gao Duai didn't seem to have any objections, but asked with a little interest. Yes, I just want to get there in a short sleep. It's more comfortable than the train during the day, Miao Yingying quickly explained, and at the same time gave Lu Chang'an a sharp look. This guy obviously knew other people's little thoughts. Lu Chang'an smiled. As long as there were no snores or smelly feet in the same box, it would be quite comfortable. However, there were not many high-speed rail lines with service, such as between Junsha and Linan, so that time Lu Yuwang went to Linan to arrest people. He had no choice but to take an ordinary train at night. What were you talking about just now? See how mysterious you are, Bai Hui asked. In fact, she had already seen what Gao Duai and Lu Chang'an were talking about, and they looked very excited. It's a very interesting look. Lu Chang'an glanced at Gao Duai. Tell them. No way. What if they betray us later? Gao Duai looked at Miao Yingying and Bai Hui with distrust. That's true. Throughout the ages, there have been countless outstanding women who, in the face of coercion and temptation, remained unyielding, upright and righteous, and sacrificed heroically. Lu Chang'an thought of many outstanding female heroes, including Ye Saijin. Bai Hui and Miao Yingying were a little confused. What did Lu Chang'an mean? Isn't he inconsistent? What Lu Chang'an means is that only outstanding women can be trusted to participate. You are obviously not. Gao Duai looked helplessly at Bai Hui and Miao Yingying. This is proof that you are not outstanding. It is so obvious that I can't even understand it. Are you going to tell me? Miao Yingying raised her hand and grabbed Gao Duai's earlobe. I'll tell Uncle Gao later that you can go play without me. Bai Hui couldn't help but laugh out loud. Miao Yingying's movement was so natural and familiar, as clean and neat as if she had practiced it countless times. Unable to help but imagine herself pulling Lu Chang'an's ears, Bai Hui turned to look at Lu Chang'an's ears, only to find that Lu Chang'an seemed to be looking at her ears as well. After she noticed him, he turned his head away as if nothing had happened. Bai Hui felt that her earlobes were soft and seemed to be a little warm, so she quickly raised her hand to pinch her ears. Speak, tell them, Chang'an, tell them. Gao Duai was a little helpless. Miao Yingying knew this trick. It would be great if he had the skill and strength of Lu Chang'an. He could catch Miao Yingying and escort her in the pond. Just thinking about it, it's not that Gao Duai couldn't handle Miao Yingying physically, he just didn't do it. If he really did, his father Gao Yuanshan would definitely send him into the pig pen. That's it? Gao Duai discovered a burglar's cave on that mountain. Lu Chang'an pointed to a large mountain with lush forests in the distance and said. After the college entrance examination last year, Lu Chang'an came to Gao Duai's house to go boating. That time Bai Hui and Miao Yingying were also there. He met Li Hongfang, who discovered a large tomb in that mountain. Later, when Li Hongfang was excavating, Lu Chang'an went to visit for a short time, but he did not expect that Gao Duai would discover traces of whole theft during the winter vacation. Chang'an said that we could go and have a look first. He also has some research on tomb robbing and could take me to visit, so we decided to go on an adventure tonight. Gao Duai continued. Bai Hui and Miao Yingying looked at the two people in front of them dumbfounded. The words cave robbing and tomb robbing had only been seen in novels and movies. Have you done some research on tomb robbing? Bai Hui stared at Lu Chang'an dumbfounded. This was outrageous. It wasn't that she suspected Lu Chang'an of lying, this man basically didn't think that others were worthy of his lies. What is going on in Lu Chang'an's life? Bai Hui couldn't understand that his classmates and friends could be related to things like tomb robbing. He said he had done some research, so why don't you go with him to make trouble? Miao Yingying looked at Gao Duai angrily. Could she get involved in this kind of thing casually? Even if others are professionals, don't get involved, let alone just do some research. You already know, either participate or be silenced, Lu Chang'an said coldly, so in the past many men would not let women know when they were planning to do big things. Does silence mean to kill me? Bai Hui looked a little scared. but she still laughed out loud after saying it. In fact, this was not the first time Lu Chang'an had threatened people like this. She was always scared by him before. The first time was when he threw two robbers off the bridge, and then said that he would imprison Bai Hui in the basement. Now thinking about it, Bai Hui was still a little willing, and of course 99% is unwilling. The second time he buried Guan Yuan, saying that she was a grasshopper on his rope or something. If something happened to Guan Yuan, she would be the real culprit behind the scenes, and he was just the executor. If he was holding her with a rope, like many collars in cute lingerie shops, let girls dress up as cat girls, dog girls, or something like that. Bai Hui is also a little willing, and of course 99% unwilling. Basically you can think of it as unwillingness. Do you still remember that oranges were stuffed in your mouths before? I think if you stuff oranges this time, you already know the solution, so in order to prevent you from leaking the news, I plan to stuff two light bulbs into your mouths this time. Lu Chang'an he looked at Bai Hui and then at Miao Yingying. Let's start with Miao Yingying. Hearing Lu Chang'an's flat tone, Miao Yingying was a little scared. Although her rationality told her that Lu Chang'an was joking, this person's words could always infect other people's emotions and make people lose their sense. Miao Yingying pushed Bai Hui to Lu Chang'an's side. As he went, he ran, and shouted, "Why me? Go and get Bai Fen." "Gao Dui," I said to Lu Chang'an, "I'm going to ask Miao Yingying to keep the secret. She is a person who doesn't give much warning and is prone to talking nonsense." After saying that, Gao Dui I went to chase Miao Yingying, leaving only Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an standing there. The afternoon sun and wind were not noisy. Lu Chang'an looked at the backs of Gao Dui and Miao Yingying, and his eyes fell back on Bai Hui's face. Please vote for the big chapter. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 722. Bai Hui is wearing a thin blue-purple sweater, which looks more mature than her usual cute style. Her hair is not tied into girlish twin tails, but is slightly fluffy and wavy, draped over her shoulders and back, giving her a little more warmth. She has a graceful temperament. The sweater has a thin rope tied around the waist, which makes the waist look particularly slender and soft. The black long skirt is made of quite heavy material. I don't know if it has a lining, but the hip line it looks plumper than before. The finishing touch of this outfit is her soft and thin scarf, which adds a lot of intellectual temperament to her whole person. Now she pursed her lips, and there were two shallow smile holes next to the corners of her mouth, making her look especially cute and charming. Such a girl is enough to attract people's attention on any occasion and be chatted up by many people. However, after Lu Chang'an came, the classmates who originally liked to chat with her or strike up a conversation also dispersed. It's not that everyone thinks that Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui have a clear ambiguous relationship, but Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui have had unclear rumors for 3 years in high school. Even if they are made clear later, the rumors will still give people a little bit of information. There is an ambiguous impression in the relationship between the two. Gao Dui I won't really take a light bulb and put it in Miao Yingying's mouth, right? After Bai Hui finished speaking, he looked back at Lu Chang'an with a smile and found that he was looking at her, showing a shy smile and twitching his ears of hair. Since she confessed her love to him, she has actually never had any time to be alone together. It is not so easy for her to regain her previous mentality and get along with him. People always say that the lake in the heart is disturbed, there is a ripple in the lake in the heart and so on. Of course, the lake in the heart that is undisturbed will calm down, but every time I see him, his every word, every move, it was like pebbles thrown into the lake of her heart, and it was impossible to calm down. The wind doesn't stop, and the trees want to be still, but they can't. What's more, some small flowers, grass, and saplings don't want to be still at all. Instead, they sway more cheerfully when they are faced with the wind. They always regard the affectionate and ruthless wind as the spring breeze, and in their hearts give birth to sprouts. It's possible, Lu Chang'an said to Bai Hui, open your mouth and show me. Bai Hui was stunned for a moment, not knowing what he wanted to do. She slightly parted her lips, revealing her white teeth. She raised the tip of her tongue slightly and spit out a little bit. When taking selfies, she would occasionally want to take some selfies and use the gestures of her lips and tongue to increase the effect. For attractive photos, if you do a little research, you will certainly know that slightly opening your mouth will look much better than opening it wide. What kind of pause are you doing? Let me see how big your mouth is, and see if the light bulb can be taken out smoothly. Lu Chang'an stretched out 2 fingers. You stuck out your tongue to pretend to be cute. When I was hunting in the past, when I encountered a supergiant 2-toed anteater that stuck out its tongue to entangle people, I grabbed its tongue and killed it. It was not the ordinary 2-toed anteater nowadays that has a tongue half a meter long. Anteater. Ah. In order to know the answer after his examination, Bai Hui quickly opened his mouth to stop him from talking about the supergiant 2-toed anteater with the tongue-twisting tongue. Why didn't you go to the scene while he was hunting? What about hunting tigers in Yangang? Bai Hui is a little confident because she just had her teeth whitened during the winter vacation. Her teeth are clean, white, and bright, with no tartar or stains. Her tongue is pink and tender, with no tongue coating, and no oral ulcers or Helicobacter pylori. Odor. The most delicious thing about the supergiant 2-toed anteater is its tongue and back meat. Ah! Bai Hui quickly shouted at her like when she was being examined by a dentist. She stood on tiptoe slightly and shouted at him, interrupting his rambling. Who wants to know about the supergiant 2 toes? Are anteaters delicious? She just wanted to know if the light bulb in her mouth would be able to be taken out smoothly. Lu Chang'an looked at the distance between her lips and uvula, observed the angle between the uvula, the base of the tongue and the pharyngeal wall, as well as the tongue tip, tongue leaves, tongue body, hard palate and soft palate, and then nodded. How is it? The light bulb is put into my mouth, can you take it out? Bai Hui twisted her body, looking forward to it coquettishly. In fact, she felt that it was impossible for Lu Chang'an to put a light bulb into his mouth. At most, he would put some oranges or something else, just like last time he put oranges into her and Miao Yingying's mouths. Actually, I'm just testing your IQ. Lu Chang'an laughed. As soon as she saw him laughing, Bai Hui pouted, feeling a little aggrieved, because every time he started to laugh, it meant that he was just teasing her. You're not opening my skull to see my brain. If you look at my mouth, how can you test my IQ? Bai Hui said, unconvinced. The main reason why the bulb cannot be taken out because the bulb is stuck in the mouth is that the movement of the oral joints is blocked, just like a rotating gear system. If you jam one gear, the other gears cannot rotate. The average person puts a bulb in their mouth, it has nothing to do with the internal space of the mouth, unless you have a huge mouth. Lu Chang'an saw Bai Hui's bulging aura, and patted both sides of her cheeks with both hands, slapping her away. Every time he saw someone puffing out their cheeks towards him, Lu Chang'an wanted to slap their puffed cheeks down, only the good-looking ones. You don't even know this, so after testing, your IQ is judged to be low, Lu Chang'an concluded. Bai Hui twisted her body unhappily, raised her hand to separate her long hair, and held her cheek. What you and Gao Dui I enjoy most is to prove our low IQs time and time again. Old bully us. Actually, your IQ is not the lowest. The lowest one is the kind where I say I'll check the size of your mouth and see if the light bulb can be taken out smoothly. He can't wait to ridicule or popularize science with a sense of superiority. Saying that I didn't know that being unable to take out the light bulb has nothing to do with the size of the mouth. Ha ha, Lu Chang'an laughed. If you know a little bit of common sense, you always feel that it is some great knowledge. These people who others definitely don't know, IQ lower than you. I think you are about the same as them. You have the same nature. Bai Hui snorted and suddenly felt happy. It turned out that her sudden confession did not change her relationship with him. He was still the same to her, teasing her. My heart is trembling, sometimes angry and sometimes happy. Also, what kind of state of mind does Lu Chang'an have? It's not that easy for me to influence him. But she also felt that he had changed a bit towards her. As for the specific changes, Bai Hui didn't want to analyze them carefully, she could just experience them with her feelings. You're right, Lu Chang'an nodded, not caring that he was classified as a person with a lower IQ than her. Then do you want to put a light bulb in my mouth? Bai Hui opened her mouth, stuck out her tongue, and quickly retracted to prevent him from grabbing her like a giant two-toed anteater. The tongue killed her. No, even if I put the light bulb into your mouth, if I don't tear your mouth open, I can only pour paraffin into your mouth to wrap the light bulb, and then break the light bulb and take it out. In this way, your mouth will inevitably be injured. If you want to treat the injury, you might waste my saliva. Lu Chang'an shook his head and prepared to go to Gao Duai. I will really go to the robbery cave with Gao Duai in the evening, and I need to prepare some tools. Bai Hui followed him inexplicably. This person actually knew how to take the light bulb out of her mouth, but why was her mouth injured and wasting his saliva? Could it be that healing can be achieved by just talking about it all the time? Bai Hui suddenly thought that she had seen many scenes in movies and TV shows where a girl's finger was injured and a boy would suck her finger. Could it be that Lu Chang'an meant that her mouth was injured and he needed to lick it? Otherwise, why waste your saliva? Bai Hui's heart was beating fast. Even though his reason told him that Lu Chang'an definitely didn't mean this, he still couldn't help but his cheeks felt warm and he pressed his lips together tightly, as if his little mouth would be hurt otherwise. It's like being healed by him. Hello everyone, the update I broke out today is for the monthly pass. Friendly reminder, please do not put the light bulb into your mouth. If you try it after reading this article, you will only get a sand sculpture appraisal certificate, which you can issue to yourself. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 723. Bai Hui held up her skirt and followed Lu Chang'an briskly. She had just seen Miao Yingying enter the room, and she and Lu Chang'an found Miao Yingying and Gao Duai hiding in the room. Gao Duai and Miao Yingying were hiding in the room. They didn't do anything. They just stuffed an orange into their mouths and stared at each other in silence. What are you doing? Bai Huixiao's chest trembled slightly. He raised his hand to press his chest, and pressed his lower abdomen with the other hand, feeling that he was going to twitch with laughter. Gao Duai, I declare that you have lost the qualification to laugh at Miao Yingying's IQ from now on. Lu Chang'an also laughed and patted Gao Duai on the shoulder hard. Gao Duai blushed, pointed at Miao Yingying, and then pointed at himself, dancing around to indicate that he was plotted or forced by Miao Yingying. Miao Yingying pointed at the phone and looked at Bai Hui angrily. Bai Hui took out her cell phone and looked at it, only to realize that Miao Yingying had sent him a lot of distress messages and called her. However, Bai Hui's cell phone was in her bag. She was with Lu Chang'an just now, and there was no one at all. Noticed. Lu Chang'an took photos first as usual, and then went downstairs to get a knife and asked them to poke each other in the mouth, smash the oranges and dig them out. Let's go. Lu Chang'an gave the knife to Gao Duai, and then motioned for Bai Hui to go out as well. Still not satisfied, Bai Hui also took a few close-ups of faces, cropping the four corners of the photos, leaving only the feeling of Gao Duai and Miao Yingying's faces looming over them on the screen. Why did they become like this? Bai Hui, still smiling, asked after Lu Chang'an walked out of the farmhouse room. It was probably just a joke. Gao Duai asked Miao Yingying to keep it a secret. Miao Yingying said that unless she blocked her mouth, under normal circumstances, boys who are good at flirting with girls would block her mouth with their own mouth, but after all, Gao Dui is Gao Dui and chose to use oranges. Lu Chang'an made a casual guess. Miao Yingying was very disappointed with Gao Dui like this. In anger, she also stuffed the orange into Gao Dui's mouth. Bai Hui then guessed the next development. Interesting. Oh, then I am also someone who may leak the secret. What did you use to stop me? Bai Hui's heart skipped a beat, with a shy smile on his lips, and he asked boldly, staring carefully with the corner of his eyes. At Lu Chang'an's reaction. Didn't you agree to get a light bulb? Lu Chang'an's reaction was normal, the same as most people's choices. But you just said that the light bulb would scratch my mouth. It would waste your saliva. Bai Hui has a lot more courage than before. She confessed, because she discovered that shy and reserved, this person will not have no matter what response or bold confession, he won't take it seriously. So why not choose to be bold? Anyway, there is no difference, at least I will have that slightly sour and astringent feeling in my heart, as if I am in love that does not require response. Then let's use oranges. Lu Chang'an understood what she meant, and then pushed the door of the guest room next to him to see if there were any oranges among the welcome fruits that he could use. It's not that only a few hotels provide welcome fruits. There are also farmhouses run by Gao Yuan Shan, because the Gao family's manor has never lacked seasonal fruits throughout the year. No. Later you take pictures of me with oranges stuffed in my mouth. Bai Hui blocked her mouth and begged coquettishly, stop bullying me. Hey, I'm getting goosebumps. This was the first time Lu Chang'an heard Bai Hui speak so delicately, and his voice was as sweet as melted ice cream. A light pink color floated on Bai Fen's face. At this time, Gao Dui and Miao Yingying walked out of the room a little depressed. Neither Lu Chang'an nor Bai Fen stayed to help, so the two stuffed oranges into each other's mouths. People have to help each other dig out oranges, which feels very stupid. What are you doing? Bai Hui still found it funny when he saw them. I also want to say, what are you doing? I sent you a message but you didn't reply, and I called you but there was no response. You forget your friends because of sex. Miao Yingying said angrily. I didn't pay attention. Bai Hui took out the phone from the bag and saw a missed call and several messages, all sent by Miao Yingying. The leather of this bag is relatively thick, and the vibrations were not strong. Lu Chang'an was teasing her again just now. How could she notice? A lifetime of fame can be ruined in one moment. Gao Dui sighed and said depressedly, this Miao Yingying doesn't look very smart every day, why is he always being tormented by her? It should be that she lowered my IQ to the same level, and then used her rich experience to defeat Gao Dui, who was not used to fighting with low-level IQ. You are called ruined by a seedling, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. It would be called ruined by a single blow if you were sent to Africa. Except for Gao Dui, everyone else knew the meaning of Lu Chang'an's words and laughed. Especially Miao Yingying, who liked the idiom ruined by a seedling very much. She pulled the hem of her inner shirt and bounced lightly on her heels. Ever since she had a second chance to grow, Miao Yingying liked this action a little bit, especially in front of Gao Dui. Occasionally, Gao Dui would notice her small movements. At this time, he would always be stunned for a moment and then turn his head away, and Miao Yingying's cheeks would feel warm. This shows that Lu Chang'an is really not a human being. You must know that Bai Hui likes to do this little trick in front of him the most, and he has never seen Lu Chang'an behave strangely or lose his mind. A few people chatted for a while. Lu Chang'an went to get an orange and slowly peeled it and ate it. A classmate who was playing in the courtyard of the farmhouse called them over. Bai Hui didn't go there and went back to the room to take a look and found that Miao Yingying's bed was quite messy. Bai Hui suspected that when Gao Dui and Miao Yingying stuffed oranges into each other's mouths, they did it on this bed, that is. Said that Miao Yingying and Gao Dui had sex. Unexpectedly, Miao Yingying and Gao Dui made such progress. Bai Hui was a little envious. She lay on her side of the bed and rolled from one side to the other. Bai Hui changed her clothes and picked up the equipment bag beside the bed. Before she confessed her love to him that day, she told him that she had created the choreography for a theme song of The Legend of the White Snake and would perform it in Gao Dui. It was completed on the lake at home, and she hoped he would take pictures of her. This bag of equipment is quite heavy. Fortunately, when Gao Yuanshan asked Gao Dui to drive to pick up Miao Yingying, he helped Bai Hui pull it over. In addition to the main equipment for shooting, there are also photography lights, stands, stabilizers, etc. Don't fall into the lake today, Bai Hui thought, and then went to Luchang'an to help get things. He planned to take advantage of the good light and finish shooting the video material before dark. Bai Hui was spotted as soon as he walked out of the door. Someone immediately started asking Bai Hui to dance, especially Luo Shi, who had his first-year high school girlfriend with him. He was in high spirits and was pinched before he calmed down. Bai Hui is a well-known dance-up master. This fact is well known among the students. Although various two-dimensional game manufacturers ask Bai Hui to make dance videos to promote games at a high price, but to dance for the students, of course, there is no reason to be proud of one's worth. Bai Hui danced the most well-known song Pure Land generously, and many classmates took videos. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 724. After Bai Hui danced for her classmates, she panted behind Luchang'an while carrying her equipment. It wasn't that she was tired, but dancing was quite energy-consuming. After walking for a while, Luchang'an turned around and saw Bai Hui looking at him aggrievedly, walking forward on tiptoe, looking very strenuous, so he took the equipment bag. Thank you. Bai Hui trotted to keep up with him, and then she could walk forward side by side with him. Luchang'an turned around and glanced. Bai Hui was not tall. Like Zhu Huntang, when introducing his height, he insisted on emphasizing that his highest height in the morning was 1.65 meters. However, the well-proportioned lengths of all parts of the body, coupled with the visual growth of the heels and insoles, make many males willing to regard her as a perfect mate that is rare in their lifetime. Her waist is as thin as the thatch swaying beside the field ridge. It can bounce back and sway a few times with a light touch of her fingers. When she danced just now, Luchang'an was reminded of some famous names in history because of her light waist. The scene, he really made people dance in the palm of his hand. There are indeed people who can dance gracefully on the palm of this small hand. Compared with those dancers, Bai Hui's figure is not that perfect. It is easy to change the body's center of gravity and lose balance during the ups and downs. There is a bakery shop next to Luchang'an's rice noodle shop, which sells small steamed buns for 20 yuan a basket, but more people choose to buy 2 Big Joe Mama brand meat buns at the Red Soup Spicy Rooster noodle shop. Can you dance in such a big place? Without leaving the circle, Luchang'an pointed Bai Hui to look at his fingers, and then drew a palm-sized area in the air. Of course you can. It's basically just spinning around in circles, and you can only stand on tiptoe, which limits your body movements a bit. There's nothing else difficult about it. Bai Hui nodded curiously. Was he worried that she wouldn't be able to perform well when dancing on the boat? Obviously she looked great dancing on the boat last time, but she accidentally lost her balance later. She just needs to be more careful this time. There will be no problem if she chooses a bigger boat. Luchang'an squatted down, stretched out his palm facing up, and said to Bai Hui, "Come on, try dancing in the palm of my hand." How is this possible? Bai Hui bent down and glanced at his palm, and couldn't help laughing. Luchang'an was always so whimsical. Girls are easily attracted to such unconventional boys, and they stared wide-eyed. He watched their misbehavior in amazement, and then gradually paid more attention to them because of his curiosity. "Didn't you just say that you can dance in such a big place?" Luchang'an said, pointing to his palms. The size of his palms matched his height. "Can this be the same?" Bai Hui shook her head vigorously and took 2 steps back while holding up the hem of her skirt. She kind of liked him taking the initiative to do something with her for fun, but she really couldn't do this. The most important thing is that it is difficult for ordinary people's palms to support the weight of an adult woman, but if he steps on it and he can't support it, he will definitely not think it is a problem with his strength, but will blame her for being too heavy. Bai Hui didn't want him to think that way. When the time came, she would definitely be able to get angry and listen unhappily as he wrongly accused her of being too heavy and asking her to lose weight. Try it, Lu Chang'an urged. In fact, he usually let Zhou Dongdong stand on his palm and play, but Zhou Dongdong couldn't dance. Then you can't say I'm heavy. Bai Hui found that she couldn't refuse to do stupid things with Lu Chang'an. After all, it felt good to be friends who could do stupid things together. Just like sometimes when I recall the relationship between myself and Miao Yingying, there is basically no picture of positive energy, wit, and bravery, but the picture of the two of them being stupid together immediately comes to mind vividly. Weight needs to be compared. I don't know how much you weighed before. Without reference data, even if you weigh 200 kilograms now, I won't say you are heavy in front of Lu Chang'an's strength, 100 kilograms, and 2. The difference between 100 kilograms is slightly equal to 0. Of course, if it's the girlfriend's body weight, then the difference of a few kilograms will still feel quite obvious. You only weigh 200 kilograms. Bai Hui raised her legs eagerly, glanced at Lu Chang'an who was squatting down, and held down her skirt. Do you really want to try? Long-winded. Bai Hui then raised her foot to step on Lu Chang'an's palm, and Lu Chang'an quickly retracted his palm. Bai Hui stepped on the air, took a step forward, and asked suspiciously, "Are you kidding me again?" Just like when he asked her to put her hands into his warmed palms before. "Take off your shoes." Lu Chang'an stretched out his palm again. Others are dancing in the palm of their hands. At most, their feet are covered with cloth, that is, they wear cloth socks or something. There is no one wearing shoes. In order to match her today's song-style clothes, Bai Hui's shoes are of a style with more traditional elements, but the soles are also thick to increase the height. They are not much different from the shoes she usually wears. They are not as soft and light as soft-soled cloth shoes. But taking off her shoes and stepping on his palm still made Bai Hui blush a little. Does he have any special hobbies? I took a sneak peek at his expression, and it didn't look like this man could judge his words and deeds the same way he would an ordinary boy. You must be overthinking it, right? Bai Hui didn't try to analyze it anymore. Anyway, what was it about him that she could understand? Then you are not allowed to tickle the soles of my feet. I'm ticklish. Bai Hui kicked her shoes. You are not Zhao Min, and I am not Zhang Wuji. Why am I tickling the soles of your feet? Lu Chang'an just had a little sentiment and wanted to recreate a historical scene. It just so happened that she was wearing antique-style clothes today to match the dance music. Bai Hui likes Zhao Min very much. She suspects that some people may like Zhou's Hiruo more, while some people are more like Zhou's Hiruo. Bai Hui kicked off one of her shoes and lifted the hem of her skirt, revealing her little feet in white socks. The material of the stockings was semi-transparent at the toes. She nervously held together a few toes and tentatively nodded at Lu Chang'an. Palm of hand. Not moving at all. Only then did Bai Hui gain some confidence, and stepped on his palm with a little more strength. You have two palms. Of course Bai Hui knows the illusion of dancing in the palms, but those beauties in ancient times must have been very thin. Their growth and height were not as good as those of modern people, and most of them did not carry as much weight as her. Carrying such a heavy and cute little animal as a bear. Lu Chang'an put his hands together, and Bai Hui stepped on it with one foot. He found that it was as stable as stepping on the ground, so he raised his other foot and stepped on it. How did you do it? Bai Hui stood firmly in his hands and looked at him in amazement. A shy smile appeared on her cheeks. She felt that her feet were held by his hands. The feeling coming from her body was mixed with the strangeness in her heart, making her eyes watery. Dance, Lu Chang'an urged, and then slowly stood up. Bai Hui lost his balance at this time, screamed, leaned back, and couldn't keep his balance even though he was dancing around. He quickly lowered his head and grabbed Lu Chang'an's hair, and then the whole body still fell down. Lu Chang'an had no choice but to hug her. Ah, ah, Bai Hui exclaimed twice briefly and found that she had landed safely in his arms. Her hair fell on his shoulders, her cheek was pressed tightly against his chest, and she seemed to be soft. The cat is bent in the strong arms of its owner. Her heart was pounding, her breathing was a little rapid, and her chest was rising and falling against him. As he let go of one hand, Bai Hui quickly stepped on her shoes and stood up. I'm scared to death. Why did you suddenly raise your hand? Bai Hui blushed and found something to say. I know how to brag. Lu Chang'an was disappointed. Bai Hui was not a professional dancer after all, and he thought too much. I'll go back and practice first, I'll try again next time. Bai Hui found out that it was harder than he thought. He originally thought that as long as he could stand firm, he could just dance for a while without any problem. If the range is too small, then there is a big difference whether the foothold is on the ground or at a certain height from the ground. Let's take a video first. Lu Chang'an didn't care, he just thought it would come out. Bai Hui made up her mind to practice by herself first when she went back, because she suddenly thought of him holding her beautiful little feet and her dancing in his palm. This scene was so beautiful.